very brief point on what's been a quite productive day and a very enjoyable one. I want to say a few things, but I shan't take more than 4 or 5 minutes, and that might be an overestimate. I've very much enjoyed the bringing together of production and consumption studies today. The combination of the two, the intermingling of the two, has been actually even more productive than I thought it would be. The idea of getting inside both the space of production and the space of consumption and trying to talk about both has been really a good one. And there have been some very fine presentations, as I'm sure you'll agree. 3 points that I'd make, really. The first point is about value, and it follows something I made the other day in another meeting, but it really is about the possible 3 spaces, carving it up rather grandly, but in which value is found. First of all, there's value as economic value. Production and consumption generate value as economic value, monetized value. And we've heard a lot about that, and I've certainly learnt a lot that I didn't know at all about that as an area of media activity. The second area of value is what we might call creative value. And the creative value, first of all, that's organised by producer criteria, how they think value can be obtained, how they strive to achieve it, and how they're satisfied or not when they finish it. So that's value, as it were, inscribed into the product itself by production. And the third area of value is value for users and audiences, where product values, drama episode, reality TV game show, whatever, product values connect up quite powerfully with life values in the lives of the audiences, and the range of demographic variables out of which an audience is made, and we've heard quite a bit sometimes about that variation, the constant danger in media studies of homogenizing the audience, certainly mostly avoided, in fact, throughout the day, thank goodness. These 3 areas of value, as I've put it rather schematically, involve power relations and controls. One crude model, which I wouldn't accept, I don't think anyone would say basically the power relations are simply producer-led throughout. Producers determine value, really. Anything else down the line is a consequence. Indeed, economic value prioritises what the producers do. You could have a very determinist model of a kind of a linear sweep of value. But we know that it's not quite like that, although we're not usually daft enough or confident enough, depending on your interpretation, to just simply reverse it and say, oh, it's actually all to do with audience value. It just simply passes through creative value and eventually makes a bit of money if it's lucky. That reverse causality is simply not on. So what it's all about is unpredictability, of which we've heard a lot, mixed with predictability, which is part of the game. And there are moments of connection and there are moments of disconnection across the 3 areas of value. That's an intriguing area, and many papers have raised it in an extremely suggestive way. My second point, much briefer, is the playoff that comes through in many of the papers between the domestic and the exotic. As we're talking about transnational quite often, and we're talking about distribution, we get this playoff between the domestic, the known, for the country, for the region, and the exotic, travelling abroad and gaining attractiveness abroad because it is not like England, as it were, or it's not like wherever it's being watched. And I'm quite interested in this exotic quality that makes some things travel so well, even though they're liked in their own countries, as it were. And quite often, then you get a third phase, which is redomestication. Having been exported as an exotic product, they're then taken on board and redomesticated with their own versions. That's quite interesting too, of course. So there's something there about the aesthetics of the exotic in relation to the aesthetics of the domestic, which I think is quite intriguing. Because we are given through drama, particularly dramatic, imaginative access to many different areas. Even though the kind of access we're given is actually massively subject to transformation. We're given access to different spaces, including spaces of others, but quite often those spaces are hugely replicated spaces. That came through very well in Vicky's presentation about the New Orleans that was on show in that series, and its connection, sometimes extremely tenuous, with the real New Orleans. A final point, good old generalisations that have served us well throughout the years, that deadly couplet, continuity and transformation. Because I think a lot of what we've heard today, yeah, it reminds us that continuities are still there. Continuities of power relationships, continuities of economic imperatives, continuities in the circuits of economic and cultural power. On the other hand, there is quite a lot of transformation going on. Transformation in consumer power, transformation in consumer options, and another transformation which is occurring in very different areas is a transformation towards a slow, perhaps, but a perceivable enrichment of cultural contexts, rather than a poverty, a pauperisation of culture. There is a sense of, that I certainly share, despite my general pessimistic perspective on things, an enrichment of culture, a liveliness, a new energy in culture, which is very hopeful. So there are my points, and that's it for me. And I do think that before turning to the panel, I know it's a rather intimidating move, and it is at the end of the day. I should say, if anyone out there might want to make a point, either following what I've said, but not necessarily, but about the values of the day, which I think have been considerable and provocative, then I think it's a good time to just, make it now. We've got a few minutes to hear a point or two.